Mic before, can you hear me? So I'm Justine Fortier. I'm the principal data scientist. We're going to talk to you about something that's a little different than what you've been hearing today, but hopefully that's refreshing. Not necessarily blockchain, but more how machine learning and AI are actually being used, at least in this industry, in the advertising technology industry. Our CEO, Todd Lubavin, is over there. He was nice enough to show up, so thank you, Todd. Like I wasn't nervous enough. No, just kidding. So let's talk about this. So one of the big things we have to decide in this industry is it's all about online bidding, real-time bidding for ad space. And we're a video advertising platform. So when you log on to your favorite browser and an ad comes up for JetBlue or Toyota or Amtrak or whatever, and it's like a 30-second video, we're the ones that have to figure out, we don't make the videos, but we have to figure out which video to show to you based on what we know about you among all the videos we could show you in 10 milliseconds. So it has to be at scale, it has to be automated, and that latter part is where the engineers come in. So I build the models and then the engineers productionize them. So we'll give you both perspectives. Okay, so quickly, a little agenda here. So what is ad tech? I know a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with this field, so I'll give you ad tech 101. Who is Viralgains? How do we play in this space? What are some of the business problems we're trying to solve using machine learning and AI? What are some of the specific model targets? So what are we trying to predict, and how are we trying to predict it? What are the input data that we have available to us? What are the specific machine learning algorithms that we've considered? And then Michael's going to talk to you a little bit about productionizing the model, so they run in those 10 milliseconds that we need the decisions to be made, thousands of times a minute. And then finally, what's the business impact that we've shown so far? What are our next steps? And we'll try to leave a couple minutes for Q&A at the end. So let's get right into it. You've probably heard of digital advertising if you haven't heard of ad tech specifically. Digital advertising is about an $83 billion industry, right? So if you look at this big ocean liner here, that would be an analog for digital advertising. Advertising technology, or ad tech, what we do specifically is sort of the $20 billion tugboat, if you will, that keeps the digital advertising industry going, right? So we're sort of the engine, the brains behind it. And you might say, well, that was 80 billion and this is 20, so that ship isn't to scale because it's not a quarter the size of the big ship. So you're right. So I apologize. But you know, the questions we're trying to answer are, you know, if you use this ship analogy, you know, which cargo are we trying to deliver specifically, to which port, to which specific recipient at that port, and how do we optimize the experience for the customer, right? So the customer doesn't get goods that they don't want to see. The goods in this case are video ads, right? So again, we're a video ad platform. We're based right here in Boston. We used to be on Atlantic Ave in the Seaport Hotel, or Boston Harbor Hotel, excuse me, building. Now we're in 10 Post Office Square, but not far from here. We were founded in 2012. Again, Todd is our CEO, and he's here today. We have 80 of the Fortune 500 as our clients, so we're growing quickly. We just got Series B funding, so that's great for a startup. It means you know, people are believing in us and our mission. And basically, we're trying to make sure that consumers, we're all consumers of digital advertising, right? That we engage with the brands that we want to engage with, that we don't see videos that we don't want to see. And that's good for me as the user, as the viewer. It's good for the brand, right? It's good for everybody. So that's kind of our mission, is to never show you an ad that you don't want to watch. And then we have these two-way conversations with clients, right? So part of the value we provide to our clients, who are big brands like a Toyota, like an Amtrak, is we also tell them not only how long did people watch your video, but which type of people watched it longer, where were the most common what were the most common reasons that people didn't watch it, where did they fall off, and then we even offer things like surveys where at the end of the video you can tell me specifically, do you plan on buying a Toyota today at the end of watching this video? So we can give them a lot of great feedback that way. Our clients are ad agencies or specific direct brands, right? So we work with both. So I stole this from, back to marketing, I stole this from our marketing team. This is just a slide that we use, but these are some of the many ways that we drive engagement, right? So not shown here, most of our videos have like a pause button, or you know, you can adjust the sound, you can pause it or play it. A lot of times they have a brand logo, so this particular video is for Brawny paper towels. And apparently if you wipe down your table in your kitchen, you look like this guy, so that's cool. And then you can see the Brawny logo at the top. If you click on that, it takes you directly to the Brawny website, right? We also have a clickable link down bottom. When clean matters, click here to learn more. So that, again, from Brawny's perspective, we're not just showing a video, we're saying, now they're going to go to our website where there might be a more specific call to action, right? And then we also do social sharing. So while you're watching the video, you can click and send it to any of your favorite social networks and say, look at this cool video I just saw presented to me by Viralgains about Brawny. We also have some other stuff that comes after the video that we'll talk about a little bit later, but those are the core ways we engage with the viewers. Some of the fun business problems we're trying to solve. So ultimately, the way the process starts is you log on to your favorite website using your favorite browser. There's a notification sent to an RTB auction, a real-time bidding auction, with some basic information about you, about where you're located, about the browser, the operating system, etc. We have to decide, again, in less than a second, whether or not we want to bid on ad space on that website to show you a specific video, okay? So the first thing we have to do with machine learning is, should we bid on you or not, right? Do we think you're going to watch the video, essentially, or not? And then we have to decide how much to bid. So we pay on a CPM basis, which is cost per, the M is Roman numeral for 1,000, right? So we pay on a cost per 1,000 impressions or per 1,000 views basis. So we have to decide, should we bid on you? How much should we bid on you? And because it's a blind auction, if we don't bid enough, we could lose, and we don't get to show you the video at all, so then nobody wins. If we bid too much, we show you the video, but we just wasted a lot of cost, right? We could have maybe won for less. So we have to figure out sort of what is your market value in the bidding process, and then bid that amount. And then if we do win, there might be 5 of our clients that have targeted somebody like you as part of their target audience. So it could be an airline, it could be a corn ship, it could be a cruise ship. I mean, all different industries we work with. We have to decide out of these 5 videos for which you qualify for their target audience, which one should we show you? And the way we decide that is through machine learning. We calculate a likelihood score for each of the 5. And whichever one you're most likely to watch is the one we show you. So this all has to be automated and done quickly at scale. And then also, sometimes we retarget certain segments, right? So people that watched a video in the past about a certain industry, let's say healthcare, for example, right? We note who those people were, and we're more likely to show them another healthcare video next time down the road. So we're constantly gathering data and using that to make smarter decisions. And then that's sort of at a micro level, right? Do we want to bid for you specifically? How much do we want to bid? And which video do we want to show you? But we also have clients that have these macro goals, right? So Toyota, for example, will say, we need to show this specific 30-second video to 10,000 people in this particular target audience segment. So women ages 20 to 30 who live in Boston, for example. And we need 10,000 of those views by the end of the month. Go. Right? So every individual decision we make, we also keep in mind these macro goals that we have not just for one of our clients, but for all of our clients. So it's very challenging, a lot of moving pieces. So in terms of the models, how do we do this, right? There's a lot of things that we try to predict, but ultimately it's about viewership, it's about engagement with these videos. So we're trying to predict the likelihood that if we show you this video, you will watch it for a certain amount of time. We also have client-specific KPIs, right? So some of our clients say, I don't care necessarily how long they watch it, I want to make sure they share it with somebody on their network. Or I want to make sure they click on that, for example, that logo I showed you for Bounty Paper Towels. We're more concerned about the click because then that brings them to our website where we can introduce these new products and these new discount promotions we have, etc. So with every new thing that you're trying to optimize towards, that's your target variable, you have to build new models. And then how do you segment it, right? So one of the things our CEO firmly believes in is every vertical is a little different, right? So auto has different goals than finance, has different goals than healthcare, etc. So we're always considering, is it a one-size-fits-all model, or should we build different models by vertical? Or any other segmentation you can think of. And then, I think of a machine learning model as kind of like a food recipe, right? So I showed this slide not by accident, because our leadership recently made us all blueberry pancakes, which was very cool. You don't get that at a big company, right? But how do you make the perfect blueberry pancake, right? There's certain things you would never put in there and it's obvious, right? Like, I don't know, ketchup or glass or something, right? Nobody wants to eat glass. But then there's a question of more subtle questions like, okay, well, it's got to have blueberries because it's called blueberry pancakes, but how many is just the right amount of blueberries? We want to use the main wild blueberries, the little ones or the big fat ones. Should we put extra things in there like vanilla or, I don't know, chocolate chips or whatever you want to put in there? There's no one answer to that, right? So the modeling process is basically about considering all the potential input variables that could be predictive of, is this going to be the best blueberry pancake you've ever eaten, right? So it's just about as much as what should go in there and how much of it should go in there as it is about what shouldn't go in there as well. And sometimes you're surprised by what the data shows you, right? Sometimes you think, well, obviously, this is going to be a key driver of this, and it turns out not to be at all. And then there's other things where you have to kind of use your common sense, like, well, the number one indicator of whether or not someone's going to watch this video is the third digit of their zip code, right? You have to, that's where like kind of the business knowledge comes into play and the common sense, like, does that make sense, right? Sometimes it's correlation or it's association, but it's not causation, so you have to be careful with that. So some of the general things we consider when we're trying to predict things is the environment. So I mentioned before, where are you located? What do we know about you as a person? What, gender, age, income, basic things like that we're told when somebody opens a browser. Device, operating system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do we know about you as a user specifically? And if we haven't seen many users specifically like you, are there other users that are like you that we've seen in the past, right? So I'm sure you've heard about the Netflix model and collaborative filtering and recommendation engines and all that. A lot of that is about identifying other customers that are like you, and since they like these movies and you haven't seen these movies, we think you would like them too, so we're going to recommend these movies. It's the same way with our videos. And then what do we know about the video itself, right? That's actually something that hasn't been looked at a lot, so we're doing that now. And do certain people like certain types of videos, not just the duration of the video, but other attributes of the video itself, music, et cetera. You can imagine a key driver of whether or not I want to watch something when I'm busy and it pops up on my screen is how good is it, right? Does it grab my attention? Does it tell a story, et cetera? And then we're always deriving new features as well. So we start with sort of the core basic inputs, and then we derive new ones that sometimes are even more important than the originals. And then, the other thing I'll tell you is, it's not always about the sexiest, AI model and building robots and everything else, right? Like, we live in the real world, and I can tell you, I was talking to a couple people earlier, before the talk here, and, what are your recommendations for getting into the field? And, like Dr. Roman, it's all about the business, right? So sometimes you can deliver a keen insight before you even build a model, and they don't have to wait 3 weeks until you build this perfect model. You could say, look, did you realize that this type of person never watches this type of video, and I can do that by a basic exploratory analysis before I ever build a model. And that could end up being a huge insight for the company. So it's about constantly giving them little things to make them smarter. So usually we're trying to predict yes or no, will you take this action? So will you watch the video for X number of seconds? Will you share it with your friends? Will you click on this button, et cetera? So when we talk about machine learning algorithms, we need percentage likelihood as an output because we need to rank all the different videos that we could show you against each other, right? So if you're 80% likely to watch this one and only 40% likely to watch this one, and Mike will get into this a little bit later, we're going to show you the one that you're 80% likely. So to do that, we need to build models not just for each individual, but for the combination of each individual and each video that they qualify for, that we could show them. So then you get into all your, in machine learning you could have like a numerical target, like a regression, or you could have a categorical target. So in this case, we're in that class of categorical targets. So we're trying to predict yes or no, will you do X, Y, Z? So, things like logistic regression, random forest, neural networks, there's a lot of different things that you can use. And the key is, in this industry especially, I've worked in a lot of different industries. I worked at Staples, for example, for many years. I worked at Subway sandwiches. You don't necessarily have to decide if someone's going to eat a sandwich in 10 milliseconds, right? But in our world, that's key, because if you don't decide in 10 milliseconds, that auction I was telling you about, there's 100 other competitors bidding on you just against us, just like we are. And if we don't do it fast enough, it doesn't matter how much we bid, doesn't matter how smart we are, we're going to lose out on that opportunity to show you a video. And then Toyota, our customer, is not going to be happy with us. They're going to say, why aren't you showing videos this month to anybody? And it's like, well, we have the best machine learning model ever, but it takes like 10 seconds, and it needs to take 10 milliseconds. But it's really awesome. They don't care, right? Speed is the key in the business world. So now Michael's going to talk to you a little about, once we build the data science model, how do we make it happen super fast and at scale? And he's a software engineer, so.
Right. So from the engineering point of view, my slides are a little bit different. It's more like flow of data and stuff like that. So here's what actually happens when we show an ad on the page, right? The ad starts running. Maybe you clicked on it. Maybe it just starts running. The ad in the browser sends a lot of signals back to our servers. So a signal might be that the ad started, that the ad finished, that you clicked on one of the share icons, and so on. So we have an application that captures all of that and then streams that data into software called Kafka. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a messaging or stream software that allows you to stream events into it and then and kind of hold them there and allow different other systems to process them at their own pace. Because keep in mind, we're getting thousands of these events per second, right? So they kind of get into this like processing queue, and then they actually go in two different directions. So one goes into a software, it's an open source software called Druid, which is kind of like a database, but it's really optimized towards storing counts of things. So it's really, really fast to store like, yep, just add 1 to the counter of ads started, right? And then it's also really fast, and that's what we use for all of our reporting. So you can issue a query to it and say, how many ads started between 2:45 and 2:50, something like that, and it's very fast. But then at the same time, we take all the data we have that we obtained both from the exchange that told us about the opportunity and all of these events, and we store them as flat files in S3, just to like dump all the data so we have it, and then from there we can process it. So then the next step is, so we actually leverage Apache Spark jobs to take all that data from S3, and you'll notice they're stored in many different files. Like our click stream is stored in its own file, and then like video played is its own file. So the first thing we have to do is actually join all those different data streams into a single view of a session. So like an ad showed and it played until 7 seconds later and then somebody clicked. So all of that gets joined into one row, and you see that that's like that middle file in S3. And then we have a second Spark job that actually trains our models. And what we do is we train an individual model for each ad that we show, because each ad has different characteristics, different types of people enjoy watching that ad or really don't like it, or whatever the case may be. So we actually train individual models for each ad, and we're left with these models. And the next step then is to kind of feed that back and then use those. And that's the next slide. So Justin referred to this, but here's what happens from a flow point of view, how the real-time bidding actually works. So on the left, there are exchanges, and you notice there's more than one. We integrate with several ad exchanges. They send a bid request to us, and the first thing we do is we apply some basic filters, right? So certain ads we only want to run, in the state of Massachusetts. Other ads, only run in Canada, something like that. Basic filtering things, or like maybe this ad wants to target only iOS users, something like that. If the bid request or opportunity passes that, we actually run the machine learning models for every ad unit that's still eligible to bid on it. So maybe we're running 100 ads right now, and for this particular person, based on basic targeting, we narrowed down to 20 ads that now we have to decide which ad we want to show, right? So what we do is we run each model, and we also pick the model towards the KPI we're trying to optimize. So let's say we're trying to optimize for the person actually watching the ad to completion. So we pick those models and we run it for each ad unit, and we end up with a percentage likelihood that this person will watch the ad to the end. So, I have the first one gives 50%, 60%, 90, 75. Obviously, 91 is the best, but that all feeds into the last part, which is the actual algorithm to decide which ad to show. And that actually treats the output from the machine learning model as just one signal. But as Justin said, we also have macro targets, right? So let's say 2 ad units are tied, or even one is has a slightly higher probability, but there's a different reason that we might want to choose to bid on the one with slightly lower. And I won't go into that too much. That's kind of like another place of where the secret sauce lives. But so after that, we basically decide which ad to show, and we also need to decide how much to bid for it. So like for example, the more chance we think the person will watch it to the end, the higher we will bid. But there are other signals as well. And so we make a bid to the exchange, and if we win the auction, that's when that ad appears on the browser.
Thanks, Mike. So just a couple more slides here for you. So hopefully that gives you a little better idea of how it kind of works behind the scenes. Team does a great job and makes us all look really smart. But the business impact, right? It's all about the business impact. So I think of this in terms of a couple different perspectives, right? So for Viralgains, we need to stay in business, right? We're a startup. We're lean, right? We need to make sure that people are watching the video. We need to make sure that we're meeting our clients' demands, right? So I talked about those macro goals. A client will come to us and say, we want you to show this video to this target audience X number of times over the next 3 weeks, whatever. We need to make sure we hit those goals, right? And if we're running behind schedule on that, we need to be able to sort of adjust on the fly and figure out how to make sure we get back on track. So those are kind of the business goals for our standpoint. Our clients have their own goals. Machine learning is used internally as a cost savings measure as well. So if you think about it, we're bidding more efficiently, right? If we didn't have machine learning, we would just basically say, oh, let's just bid on everybody and bid the max, and then but then we're wasting so much money. So by using machine learning, you're bidding smarter and you're saving the company money, which goes right to the bottom line in profitability, right? So that's always the goal. And then in terms of the user experience, we don't want you to have to watch. I mean, we've all had this experience where, I've talked to when I first got this job and I was kind of learning all about the industry, because I don't have a lot of, my career I worked in different industries than ad tech. I'd say, what makes you guys want to watch a video versus not watch a video? And, to a person, they said, oh, I never watch those things, But I can tell you, people do watch them because we have the data, right? So the question is, how do you get people to watch them? And the basic idea is you show the right video to the right person at the right time, and that all comes from collecting data and learning and giving somebody a pleasant experience. So in terms of next steps, what are we working on next? We're always refreshing our existing models. Our business has seasonality. Sometimes we get access to new data sources. More data usually makes for better models, more than another algorithm would, right? So the difference between a neural net and a support vector machine isn't probably going to be as big as, well, what if now we know data about, the specific audience segment that we're dealing with? Or, you can tell me how many times this person has been served a video in the last 6 months and what % of the times they've watched it, right? More data usually trumps better algorithms. So we're always refreshing when we get new data sources. New targets to optimize, right? So as I said earlier, sometimes it's about optimizing to a view, sometimes it's about optimizing to a share, to a click, and all our clients have specific goals that they're trying to achieve. So each one requires a different model. So it's very exciting, it's very interesting work, very challenging. The question I usually have to deal with is like, okay, out of these 1,000 models we could build, what are the most important ones in terms of driving business value? So always focusing on the business return on investment. Where in this case, the investment isn't just the money and the AWS costs and things like that, the infrastructure costs, but it's your time, right? You don't want to waste time on things that aren't going to drive value for the business. So we're constantly updating our roadmap and having discussions with product and operations and the executive team and making sure we're all aligned on the goals. And the good news is, we're growing. We're growing fast. So we have a data scientist position open, actually, and 2 engineering position opens, a software engineer and a QA, quality assurance engineer. So I had the old Uncle Sam, like, we want you, and my boss said it might be a little too strong, so I took that off. But yeah, I mean, we'd love to talk to you after. Michael and I will be here for a while. So if this sounds like interesting challenges to you, you can find us after the conference. And also the Viralgains.com website, I think, has a career section, and they're on there as well. So with that, do we have a couple minutes? Or okay, any questions? Where do we start? How about you in the middle there? Yeah.
Very nice talk, and I have engineer question. So about the overall flow of the training model, if I understand correctly, you are training the user model at a real time, and when the customer viewing pages and browsing, right? And if that's right, are you literally training a user model? Because I don't think 10 minutes is not enough. And if you are literally training a user model, so how can you get so much data, and how can you overcome the bugs, like the high bias and overfitting? That's my question.
What are bugs?
Okay.
We don't have bugs, do we? Yeah, right.
So the question was, how do we train the data in real time under 10 milliseconds? The answer is we actually don't. We train the data using Spark, massively parallel processing, but we actually do it once every night. So we train the models not in real time, but then once the models are trained,
We score the people.
we do the prediction at the time that we're trying to decide to show the ad. So it's the prediction that has to be within 10 milliseconds. And that does limit us to what models we can use. Obviously, doing deep learning would be challenging. So we tend to stick with the simpler ones that do run in that time frame. Specifically for this prediction. Now, we might be doing other projects that might use different models that are not in real time, and then we'd be able to use other algorithms.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So have you ever had a chance for the conflict interest? For example, you sign up with 2 clients, one is airline, one is the paper company, and you have the clients comes in, have the best scores for both companies, and which video you're going to present to the client?
So if they had like equal likelihood?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's when, oh, I'm sorry, so she's saying like if I log on and I qualify for two of our clients' ads and it has equal likelihood from machine learning, how do we decide which of those 2 to show?
Yeah, so we have a whole pretty involved algorithm for that, but I could say that the next most important thing is what are our goals that we're trying to hit, right? So
Those are those macro goals we were talking about?
yeah, so if for the airline we're trying to serve 1,000 views a day, but for the other ad we're trying to serve 10,000 views a day, and they're equal, we might serve the 10,000 one because we just know we need to do more of that. But there are other signals
Or
as
if they're
well.
both 1,000, but one of them we've only served 200 so far today, and the other one we've already served 800. We'd
So
favor the 200.
What if your client sets generate revenue for each click and generate more revenue for 10,000 clicks, and they hit this revenue goals for the 10,000 clicks? Which one are you going to show?
You're saying once one of the ads reaches its goal?
Yes, I mean, obviously your clients give you the goal as a click, right?
Right.
Is there any chance that they give you the goal as generate revenue for 10,000 clicks, something like that?
So what is the question part of it?
Question is, because they give you the goal as clicks,
Right.
Yeah,
they
no,
didn't give you goal as the financial goals.
I think
Right.
if I'm understanding what you're getting at is, and we're actually focusing a lot on that this year, is it's not necessarily about the click, it's about the business performance
Exactly.
for our client, right?
Exactly.
So Toyota doesn't get paid if somebody clicks on their video, they get paid if somebody goes to a dealership and buys a Toyota, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it becomes a question of sort of what can we control and how much can we control, and we predict that part, but you're right. Ultimately, it's about making sure the client gets their goal achieved. So if there's a click on a call to action button that says, where are the local dealerships, right? And Toyota knows that 80% of the time people that search for a local dealership end up going to a dealership, and 50% of those people buy a car. It's all a numbers game, right? But that's how they're sort of aligned. And every industry and every company might have a different business performance goal. So we focus on the video part of it, right? But we're always ultimately trying to drive business value for them because that's what they want. So.
Okay, thank you.
Donna?
Yeah.
So what do you do if so you go through and you rank the likeliness of this person to be a good candidate, and then you have 5 companies and they're all competing. And what happens when one of your companies is always stomping on a consistent another one that's looking for a similar customer? Like, what happens when the probability of Toyota always outranks the probability of Callaway golf clubs? What do you do? Like, how do you handle that inconsistency with videos?
Right, so that's where I was talking about kind of like what is the goal that you're trying to hit. So we're trying to be fair across our companies. So what we do is it's not even that we have to hit 1,000 goals, 1,000 views in a day. What we do is we actually draw a curve of views like per minute that we want to achieve. And then we can say that one company is at like 50% of what they should be at for this minute, but another company is at 30%. So that if one keeps getting the view, then eventually it hits its goals for that minute, and then the other one can do it. And fortunately, there is enough inventory for us to satisfy.
So it's intermittent. It's not like, oh, this one's 80, this one's 20. The 80 keeps winning, keeps winning, keeps winning.
Right.
One of your customers isn't happy.
And I don't think
As
you're
soon as
necessarily
one-
going to see that situation. I think, because different types of people might like Toyota versus Callaway. So yeah, in theory, it's possible that, but the other thing is, that would only even be a question for people that qualified for those two, right? But there might be people that only qualify for one of those two also, right? And the other thing is that we should have mentioned is we don't produce the videos, right? So when you asked that question, my first thought was maybe Callaway needs to make a better video, right? If they want people to watch it more, right? But we don't make the videos, so.
But you still have a relationship.
Yeah, we do, and we have to meet our clients' goals, and that's where kind of the AI comes in, and it's like, okay, well, we can't change the video, so let's figure out the best people to show it to so that they meet their goals, right? So.
Okay, we only have time for one last question.
Do you leverage your customers' marketing automation platform and CRM system in order to be better at targeting your prospects and be more efficient at their real-time bidding?
Yeah, so I can actually give you an example of that. I mean, we don't do it with all the clients, but our clients can. The question was, do we ever use data from our clients about people they might want to target or not target, right? So one actual example, and we keep talking about the Toyota campaign because it's a pretty recent big one, but Toyota actually set up a data segment with us for all the people that they know that currently own a Toyota for us not to show them the ad. So that, because they already a Toyota owner, they're like the kinds of ads that they do for brand awareness and trying to tell them like, hey, there's a Corolla, they already know that. So that was an example where we did something
That's
like
a
that.
good point. Sometimes, if you think of the Venn diagram, right? Sometimes it's like not and, but it's or. And sometimes it's not include, but it's exclude, right? So we don't want to target, this is a little off topic, but there's like contextual targeting that we do too, for example, right? So you don't necessarily want to show a Coca-Cola ad on a diabetes website, right? Or something like that. So those are other things that, like services that we provide that, help people. Again, it's all about making sure you don't get a video that you don't want to watch. We want you to engage with the video because then everybody wins, so.
Yeah, thank you, Justine and Michael, for the
Sure.
wonderful presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.